Hey everyone, this is Pallavi, and today we are diving into the 24th game of the book, The Most Instructive Games of Chess Ever Played by Erving Chernev. The title of the game is Coup de Grace, meaning the final blow, played between Alekhine and Yates in London 1922, and the opening played was Queen's Gambit Declined. Even the great Alekhine didn't create combinations out of thin air. He followed Lasker's rule: forget wild tactics early on, build small advantages, then strike when the time is right. Watch how Alekhine seizes open files and then doubles rooks on the 7th, plants pieces on strong squares, and yes, even centralizes king. And in the mid game, his king actually marches up and snatches a rook in broad daylight. So without further ado, let's look at the game. So white started with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, and now knight c3. Black played bishop e7, bishop to g5, kingside castle, and then e3. Now black played knight b d7. White has it easy in this line of the queen's gambit. Just play natural moves and you're fine. Black, however, struggles to develop the queen side. The knight on d7 blocks the bishop, and playing knight c6 is worse. It blocks the c pawn, which is key to counterplay with c5, and the bishop still stays stuck. White played rook c1, c6, queen to c2, and now rook e8. Now white played bishop d3, developing on an open diagonal and making way for kingside castle. D takes c4. With this move and the next, Capablanca's classic freeing maneuver, black has a fair shot at equality. Other options aren't as promising. If a6, hoping for queenside play by d takes c4, bishop takes c4, b5, and then bishop d3, and then c5. So that's what black is planning. But after a6, white can play c takes d5 and then e takes d5, gives white the edge, but not knight takes d5 because of bishop takes h7 check and white wins a pawn. And if black goes with h6, then bishop to f4, a6, c takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5, castle on the king's side, and then knight f6. And then white can play h3. White can launch a powerful minority attack with rook b1, b4, a4, and then b5, playing for the win. So here black played d takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight d5, and now white played knight d4. Though bishop takes e7 is considered best, Alekhine often chose offbeat or lesser known moves, not for accuracy, but to drag his opponents into unfamiliar complications. f5. This move weakens black's dark squares and leaves him with a backward e-pawn. A white knight can now anchor on e5 with no challenge. Alekhine put it bluntly: from this point, black's game may be considered strategically lost, though converting the win won't be easy. A better defense was bishop takes g5 and then knight e takes g5, knight f8, but even then black was in for a long, tough fight. Queen a5 check was also better. f5, and then bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, knight e d2, and then black plays b5. Another strategic error. Black weakens the key c5 square. White quickly seizes it, using it as a pivot for his knight, queen, and even a rook. He also grabs control of the only open file, a perfect pathway into black's position. Bishop takes d5. Very nice play by Alekhine. He eliminates a strong central knight and gears up to take over the open file. C takes d5. Now white castles on the king side. a5. Knight b3. This move had to be played immediately, otherwise a4 would shut the knight out. It's heading straight for c5, the magic square. Now black played a4 and then knight c5. This forces a knight trade, letting white's other knight settle on c5 or even e5 without fear of being chased away. Now black captured knight takes c5, queen takes c5. The right way to capture. As Tarash said, weak points in the opponent's position must be occupied by pieces, not pawns. Queen takes e5, rook takes c5. White has the edge in force, space and time. In force, the knight heading to e5, backed up by a pawn, outshines black's passive bishop. In space, white controls the only open file. And in time, two active pieces versus none for black. b4. And then white played rook fc1, doubling up the rook. Bishop a6. Black hopes to challenge white by doubling up rooks on the c file. Knight e5. The knight arrives just in time to shut down any such ideas. If black plays rook e c8, then rook takes c8 check, rook takes c8, rook takes c8 check again, bishop takes c8, and now knight c6, hitting the b pawn and threatening knight e7 check. White wins a pawn. So after knight e5, black played rook e b8. Now white played f3. Another plus for white. His king can join the action, while black's king is stuck on the sidelines. b3. White played a3 and now black played h6. If rook c8, then rook takes c8 check, rook takes c8, and then rook takes c8 check, bishop takes c8, king f2, king f8, king e1, king e7, king d2, king d6, and then king c3, and black cannot save his a pawn. So after h6, king f2. This marks the beginning of checkmate threats, with the king himself joining the attack. Now black played king h7, h4, and then rook f8. Black still cannot contest the rooks after rook c8, takes, and then knight to d3, bishop d7, knight c5. Black ends up losing either the e pawn or the a pawn. So after rook f8, king g3. Black can only wait and hope. Rook fb8, rook c7. As the good book says, the chief advantage of holding an open file is that the rook can penetrate to the 7th rank. Bishop b5, rook 1 c5. White plans this maneuver, rook e7, then rook e8, rook f7, and then rook a b8, and to protect the bishop on b5. Then white can play rook c c7, doubling up rooks on the 7th rank. So after bishop b5, rook 1 c5, and now black played bishop a6, and then rook 5 c6. Step by step, white moves closer to his goal. Black must guard the e pawn carefully. Trying to exchange rooks with rook c8 loses immediately to rook takes a6, and white wins a piece. Now black played rook e8, white played king f4. With rook doubling unstoppable, Alekhine calmly brings his king closer to the center. King g8, h5. Now with h5, he tightens the net around black's king. Black played bishop f1 attacking g2, g3. Bishop e2. Instead, white defends the f-pawn by bringing his knight to g6. Then black then plays h4. Then followed by moving his king to e5. starting by winning the e pawn. So after bishop e2, um, then king rook to f7, and then king h7, rook c7. At last the rooks are doubled. Now the final barrier, the g pawn protecting the king, must be broken. So rook g8 and then knight d7 that threatens to win the exchange by knight f6 check. Black played king h8. Now comes a brilliant combination with Alekhine's trademark staying right at the end. Knight f6. Attacking the rook. If g takes f6, then rook h7, it's a checkmate. So black played rook g f8, and now rook takes g7. Rook takes f6, and then king a5. The point of the combination, white wins a whole rook if black plays rook f8 with either rook. It's mate in 2 because rook h7 check, king g8 and rook c g7 is a checkmate. So after king e5, black resigned. So let's look at key lessons key lessons learned from this game. Number 1, build small advantages patiently before launching combinations. Number 2, control key squares like c5 and open files to dominate the position. Number 3, use knights actively, especially in strong central or outpost squares. Number 4, coordinate rooks on the 7th rank for maximum pressure. Number 5, don't underestimate king activity even in the mid game. Number 6, recognize and exploit weaknesses in your opponent's pawn structure. And number 7, precise calculation is crucial to spotting winning combinations and meeting nets. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this game as well. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel to show some support. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.